and I want to, the class is being recorded. I just want to do first of all, sounds like anticlimactic, but I want to do a couple of housekeeping things for us to tell you what we're going to be able to do. First of all, just thank you so much, because I've been so excited in telling everybody that we were going to get to start meeting again together. And so I'm really excited. And we're going to be meeting, this first session that we'll have will be every Wednesday between now and the end of March. And then we'll be moving to where our son lives, Shalavim, for Pesach, and that's going to be a little bit more up in the air. So the only day that we won't be meeting, as far as I know, will be on Shushan Purim, which is March 8th. Because we live in Jerusalem, which was a walled city, we observe Shushan Purim, which is like the second Purim. So as far as I know, we won't be meeting then, but other than that, we'll be meeting on Wednesdays. The Jewish Experience is hosting this. They gave me my own Zoom channel. I'm so excited. I feel like a celebrity, a star. I get my own channel. That's because I accidentally interrupted Rabbi Liban during one of his chavruses and knocked him off the station. And so that wasn't so good. So that was enough of a justification of why I should get my own. Anyway, I didn't really intend to do that. But we're going to do that. They're going to make a page for me on the Jewish Experience website. And on that page will be the recordings, the little short ones that I'm doing once a week. There'll be recordings of this class. They'll be able to access that. There'll be an opportunity, because a number of you have asked about payment, because the different classes I've done have all worked different ways. Some have been tuition, some have been donations, contributions. We're putting it all together, and there will be an opportunity to do whatever you'd like. If you would like to pay for the class, it'll be $10 per class. I think it'll be $180, I think, for a contribution that would be sponsorship for a month, or $1,800 for the year. So you would be able to do that, and that could be in honor or in memory of somebody, but all of that will be is whatever you want to do, and you'll be able to do that as well. That page is not up yet. So we've just been in the talking phase. They're trying to get this done as soon as possible. So hold on until hopefully next week we'll have that ready to go. Okay, I'm so excited. Oh, and just in case there's a glitch, since I don't have control over the Zoom recording exactly and the uploading and all that, I'm recording this on my digital recorder, and I will post it on my personal website that I'm going to keep for the time being. If you're interested in that, that's torahchai.net, torahchai.net. If you go to torahchai.com, you'll get a messianic site, so don't go there, and torahchai.net. And I'm going to post it there just so that, because several people have said they couldn't come and they wanted to be able to listen to it. So that's what we are going to do. So thank you so much. And before we start, I just want to say that our class today is going to be in the special merit of a refuah shlema for Chaya Bat Shirley, for our dear friend Barbara Snyder, who just had surgery yesterday and is signed on today. So if coming from her hospital bed, so which I am very grateful for and impressed by. So Barbara, refuah shlema to you. And I want to say that unless you are in a hospital bed or driving, I would like to see your faces. That speaking to your beautiful name written out is lovely, but is kind of makes me feel lonely. So if you would like to, please show your face. If you're not comfortable, because people have told me they don't like doing that because they don't want to look at themselves. If you go up to the upper right-hand corner of your screen, there's a selection that says view. And one of the options is speaker. If you want to just see me and you don't want to see yourself, just choose speaker and I'll come on and you won't have to look at yourself. Though I'll have to tell you that I love looking at you. You all look beautiful. But if for any reason you don't feel comfortable with that, you can choose speaker. And that way, hopefully, I can see you. So again, unless you're driving or are infirm, then would really like to be able to see all of your smiling faces. And I miss you. So it's wonderful to see you. So let us begin. What I'd like to do is to be able to talk about our wonderful parsha. There are a number of sayings of our sages that the Torah that is learned in the land of Israel and that is taught from the land of Israel is at a special level. It's at a unique level. I don't know exactly what that means, but we're going to see how that all works. I can tell you that it certainly feels like that being here and learning Torah here, just in the air. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I want to be able to share Torah from that perspective with you, as well as sharing what I'm experiencing being at home in my homeland, in our homeland, and also an immigrant. Because when it comes down to it, I'm an immigrant, and it has been very humbling and very funny. I've spent a lot of time laughing at myself, at the situations. So I want to just give you like a couple examples, and then we will also talk about the parsha. This first time, especially since I haven't seen you for such a long time, I'm very happy to stay on afterwards. If people have any other questions or want to hear more, I'm happy to, because I could talk for 5 hours just about how it's been to be here. So one of the things that's been really interesting is being inept. You don't think about how competent you are. You know, sometimes we go around and we say, oh, I'm so stupid. It's like, but we're not. We basically know what's going on. If somebody is talking to you, you know, unless it's one of the people who works for the airlines and they're stationed from a different country and they think they're talking English, but you don't really understand them. Usually if people are talking to you, you understand them. And having people talk to you and you don't really understand what they're saying is a very humbling experience. So the way they do driver's licenses here, we could transfer our driver's license from Denver. If you come with proof that you've had a driver's license for the past 7 years and documentation, you get an eye exam, you get your picture taken, and then you go to another place, to the driver's license bureau, and you get your license, and then you go to the post office to pay for it. So we went to get our eyes checked and our picture taken, and they have certain optometry shops where you can go. So we went, and it was like my turn. I went first. And so she sits me down, sit down in the chair, look at this camera, and then she has on like a white jacket kind of thing, official. And then she looks at me and she says, so Gabi, I know you know this word, but and Tommy, but she just looks at me and says, Takala. And I'm like, Takala? And she could have said like, Ishkabibble, but she had a very serious look on her face. Like, is that a question? Is that a statement? And do I have the answer to what you just said? I'm just like, she goes, Takala. Like, okay. So finally she says, not working. I'm like, oh. So it means malfunction. The computer was malfunctioning, but I had no idea what she was saying. Like, is this like a diagnosis? Is this like I caused a problem that I'm not in the record? But I was just sitting there kind of sweating, like, what am I supposed to do about this takala? So anyway, now I know the word, which is takala. So actually a lot of things, there's a takala. So it's been a really good word, but it was very funny because a lot of things I do understand. So that was my one of the examples of things I had no idea what was being said. And the other I wanted to share was how knowing Eshes Chayil, a woman of valor, helped me figure out how to say fire extinguisher. So we were staying with some friends when we first came, and when we went back again, that's the other thing is people joke and say Israel is a par 3 country, meaning if you can get something done in fewer than 3 tries, then that's like a win for you. So it's a par 3. So we had to go back to do our eye thing a couple of times until it was not a takala and it wasn't a wait and all this other stuff. So our friend had said, as long as you're going to be in this shopping center, maybe you can see if you can find a fire extinguisher that we can put in our kitchen. So I'm like, okay. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to look it up. I'm going to see if I can figure out what should be the word for a fire extinguisher. So you may be familiar in Eshes Chayil, a woman of valor, it says, Shelo yichben meira, that her flame, her light will not go out. So the word yichbe, it will not go out. So I'm like, okay, that's how you say extinguish, is based on that. And then there's this little grammar thing in Israel that when something turns, instead of an action, it becomes a thing. Instead of to extinguish, it becomes an extinguisher. So then it gets this ooey thing add to it. So I'm like, okay, this is going to be kivui. That's going to be, kivui means to extinguish something. So I thought it must be kivui-esh. So I walked into the Ace Hardware. I thought, I'm just going to try this. They don't know me. I'm like, Shalom, yesh lachem kivui-esh? Just lopo aval, you know, like down the street. And she didn't even say ma. She didn't say like, what are you saying? So like, that was the word, kivui-esh. So that was my thing of how knowing Eshes Chayil taught me how to say fire extinguisher. So I was very excited about that. My problem with this tracing words, thank you, Lynn. My problem with tracing these words is it doesn't really work in a conversation because it takes me about 10 minutes to figure all this out. And by that time, the conversation has moved on. But I love thinking about this and it's really fun and rewarding. So those are my Hebrew things. Being inept, we had to have a lesson on how to get the buggy in the supermarket disconnected from all the buggies that it's chained to, because for keeping their buggies, they have a thing, they're locked together. And now you have to use like your credit card or a 10 shekel to put in a machine, and you have to enter the buggy number and do this whole thing. But like, if you don't know how to do that, you don't get to go shopping. So we had to have like this shopping lesson. It really reminded me of when we were working with a Russian family many years ago, settling a family in Denver and going to the store with them and showing them how things worked. And again, it's just, you feel like walking around saying, I really do in America, I know what I'm doing. It's just, I don't know what I'm doing here. So it's just a very, very funny feeling. So anyway, it's a lot of fun. Again, I'm laughing a lot and we've had a lot of really nice people. My goal is to make people smile, even if they're looking a little crabby, and it's been mostly successful. So it's been fun. We're very, very, very grateful. So, okay, ladies. Yes, Gabi, if you want to unmute, did you have a question?
What did you say in the supermarket? Boogie? I didn't understand.
Oh, agala, the agala for the groceries, grocery cart.
No, something that you didn't know how to use with the
Yes,
$10.
the grocery cart. Yes, the grocery cart. They're chained together in the major supermarkets. They're chained together and they're locked. And you have to put in like 10 shekel and then it releases it. Or now you have to use a credit card or a credit card to scan, and then you get it back when you return it. So you have to do this whole thing. So to be discussed later. To be discussed later. But yes, that's the that's the situation. But now I know how to do it. It's such a win. Now I feel like I'm 2 years old. It's like I did it. You know, I put my pants on by myself or something. I don't know. It just feels like I got the buggy out of the lineup. So it's very funny. Okay, the parsha. So for those of you who saw the little video from the Jewish Experience, that this week's parsha of Vayera, it's a little challenging because so much happens in this parsha. It really would require a whole year to go through, but we don't have a year to go through this one parsha. So we're just going to talk about something that really struck me a lot, which was about this week being specifically therapeutic. So the word therapeutic is that it's meant to be healing, and that the healing is mentioned that when someone is not well, we wish them refuat hanefesh, refuat haguf, where you should be healed in your life force, your nefesh, like your soul at the soul level, and your body. But there is another level even that's also included, which is a healing of the mind, a healed mind. So this, again, a person goes to a therapist for healing of the mind. Your body may feel fine, it may be experienced in your body, but it's a thought process. It's how we think about things, how we react to things, what our premises are. And this week's parsha, which features 7 of the 10 plagues, 7 of the 10 plagues come out in this week's parsha, and each of them was meant to clarify for the Jewish people exactly who God is. Because we could not witness the actual creation of the universe, the only way to get a handle, the closest we can come, is to watch the undoing of the creation of the universe. So that when we have the plague of darkness, which isn't now, the plague of darkness, which is the undoing of Vayihi Or, there shall be light. And when you have life and death, and you have the vegetation and the animals, every dimension of what are called the 10 dimensions of creation, each of them was undone through one of the makos, one of the plagues. So it did inflict punishment on the Egyptians, but you know, the Egyptians are not, they're not reading this parsha this week or any other week, and they're not observing Pesach or anything. It was really for us, and it was meant to heal our minds from inaccurate perceptions and thoughts about who God is, and the fact that God is the one who created everything, controls everything, and has mastery over everything down to the nitty gritty, not just on the grand scale, but at the nitty gritty. This is called refuah, and that it had to happen slowly. Because did you ever think about, why didn't God just, I mean, you know, aside from the fact that it makes a great movie and is dramatic reading, if the purpose of the Exodus of Egypt was to free the Jewish people from Egypt, so just knock out Pharaoh and his henchmen and get them out, you know, put everybody to sleep and just get them out. But that wasn't the purpose. It was just secondary. The first thing that had to happen was for the Jewish people to be ready to accept the Torah and to be God's people. And first we had to have the healing of the mind. And that takes time. Think about it. Do you ever wonder, why can't you go to a therapist and in one session be done with it? You know, you go in, you tell them your issue, and you're like, okay, I'm good. So if anyone who is a therapist or who has been to a therapist, it's a process. It's a process of working through of different layers and levels and integrating the understandings and having it kind of sink in. And that the Jewish people needed a process that took a year. It took a year-long process for this all to unfold so that they could be ready finally to accept the Torah, and then they could be ready to leave. Otherwise, they would just be freed slaves. And that is not the purpose of Yetziat Mitzrayim. That is not what it's all about. That was really just secondary. Marla, do you have a question? I'm just looking, it looks like, okay. All right. Yes, you do? Okay. If you want to unmute, you can, if there is something.
I'm sorry, I was sending Beth healing prayers because
Oh,
she just said she had COVID.
oh, okay.
I'm so sorry.
That's
I was sending
okay.
healing prayers.
Okay, healing prayers. This is the parsha for
Going
healing.
to Beth.
Okay, the healing prayers. Anybody who needs healing, of which there are so many people, they should all have a refuah shlema at every single level.
Thank you.
And what's interesting with healing, especially the healing mind, is that, you know, God forbid, if you have a cut and it finally heals, unless you have a problem like a hemophiliac, or you have a healing problem, you have diabetes or something like that, where your body doesn't heal, or it starts to heal and then it opens up again. Usually once you get there, you're kind of there. But with the mind tends to slip back into its previous perceptions. And it takes tremendous effort and attention and focus to keep it where it's supposed to be, which is one of the reasons why every day we are supposed to remember, Lo asani avid, you did not make me a slave. You took me out of Egypt. And it's not just that I'm not a slave there, you took me out of the mindset. That's why it's called a house of bondage. It's considered a mind that is imprisoned in illusion. The illusion that Pharaoh operated under, which was, he said, I am God and I created myself. Now we might say like, well, that's ridiculous. Who believes that? But it's kind of like the ultimate atheist statement. Like there is no God. I'm a self-made person. I created myself. You can say nature created me, whatever. Any of those things are considered. That is an illusion, and that is thinking that has to be repaired and healed, and we have to be reminded, especially if we live in a society that is giving us a message that is counter to that. So, and the Jewish people were living in a place where they constantly had to have a message, as we do today, of the reality of God's existence. I had the privilege yesterday of going to a class with Rebbitzin, Mrs. Shira Smiles, who, for those of you who were in my parsha class for many years, I watched her classes on videos, not Zoom, but video classes for, I don't know, 7 years. So now I've gotten to hear her twice in person. And I have to say, it was really strange that she did not know me. Because when of course, she would have no way of knowing me because I'm watching a video, but I'm like, how could she not know me? I know her sense of humor and how she talks and how she looks and her outfits. I mean, like everything. So she gave a class on a Shabbos. My first Shabbos I was here, there were over 100 women who were in attendance. And then I went to a class yesterday that was in Jerusalem, and there were like 45 women who were there just for an hour. And it was so exciting. And she didn't even have a sheitel on. She had like a snood. I have to say, she looked like a woman who would be collecting tzedakah at the hotel. If you saw this person, you would not think this is a tremendous Torah scholar who draws crowds around the world. It was just mind-boggling. Anyway, I was like all nervous seeing her because we walked in together, and I was like, hi, Mrs. Smiles. I've been listening to you for many years. I'm from Denver. She said, oh, it's nice to meet you. Thank you. Anyway, it's like the movie star. I didn't ask her for her autograph, but I attended her class. And one of the ideas she shared is, when we say that Torah emet, the Torah is truth. She said a better description, a definition of emet is reality. Torah is a description of reality. And I think that might be helpful to us, especially in our day and age where people have a lot of issues around saying that something is truth or not truth, and everybody has their own truth and all of that. It's not that it's not your narrative. This is reality. And, when you think about why do you want somebody to get an education? Why do you want somebody to, not be, I don't know what, zoned out on drugs and drunken stupor? Like, why do we care about that? It's like, we want someone to have a grasp on reality. That is not optional. That's not optional. I mean, most of us don't have a total grasp on reality, but we should certainly be trying to work consistently to get there. It says the Torah is our beacon of reality. And then we measure what we are experiencing against that, and the Torah defines reality for us. That is the ultimate healing. So again, when you go, like when I went for my eye exam to get my driver's license, which mind you, was like, just read these numbers. That's all it amounted to. But if I would have just said, oh, it says 98654, and I just like made something up, that's not okay. It's like not okay to not really have a grasp of reality. So Torah is the reality, and we say like, what is this? What is the definition of life? What is the definition of good? What is the definition of evil? What is the definition of what is right and what is wrong? And that is what the Torah that guides us. This requires having clarity of mind, and that clarity of mind is what each of the 10 plagues did for the Jewish people. We're all familiar also, and this is a separate issue, we're not going to really talk about it directly, that remember that we always talk about that Pharaoh's heart was hardened. Pharaoh's heart was hardened. So interestingly, it says that everything that happened to the Egyptians provided something beneficial for the Jews. So the plague of darkness gives the Jewish people, it said, had abundant light. When the water turned to blood, the Jewish people's water was fresh and nourishing and clean and amazing. It was cleansing. So you have like death and life. You can't drink blood, and you can drink water. It's like life and death, light and darkness. But what was the benefit, it said, of what happened when Pharaoh's heart became hard? It says the Jewish people's hearts became soft. It says the Jewish people's hearts softened. So now I have to tell you, the Jewish people, sometimes our soft-heartedness is to a fault. We have to be careful about that. But think about even at our Seder, when we take the 10 drops of wine out of our cup, and we do that over our pain that the Egyptians had to suffer throughout this whole experience. I have to tell you, most people would say about their enemies, you know what? They deserve it. Give them whatever it takes, after they oppressed us for 210 years and threw our babies into the river. Why should I have any mercy on them? And yet we are supposed to have a soft heart. We don't take out all the wine, but there is okay, there was suffering, there was pain, and we acknowledge that. We don't even like to know that Pharaoh's heart got hard. It's like, that's not fair. Did he really have free choice? So our compassion says was actually created was given to us as a gift, as the opposite of the hardening of Pharaoh's heart. As his heart got harder and harder and more dug in, ours got softer and softer. Usually hard experiences harden people. It says, as they say, hurt people hurt other people. You've heard that. Abused people abuse other people. It doesn't usually say hurt people help people. Hurt people hurt people. Oppressed people oppress other people. That's natural. It's unnatural to really be soft. And every time in the Torah, we're told to be especially sensitive and considerate, is like, remember Egypt. Normally, if you remember Egypt down with the Egyptians, it's like, remember Egypt. It's like, oh, compassion. That's what it's designed to do for us. So Pharaoh's heart hardening throughout this parsha, which each of the 7 plagues gave us clarity, gave the Egyptians punishment for what they did do to us, so that we would be able to be in a position to leave Egypt and receive the Torah. Now you notice that the plagues, it doesn't make for such a good movie, because there's 7 plagues in this parsha and only 3 in next week's parsha. You'd think they maybe like kind of split it up, 5 and 5, 3, 3 and 1, or something a little. It's like if you were writing this as a play, it'd be like, a little heavy on the parsha Vayera and not so much in Bo. But they're intentionally divided as 7 and 3. So we know there's a total of 10, and the first are 7. So anytime there's a 7, somebody want to offer, like, what should maybe bells should go off of? Why are we going to be talking about 7? What's that going to be maybe connected to?
Completion, Shabbat.
Okay, good. Completion, Shabbat, and that's a 7. So we have what are called the 7, and then when we are in the thinking of other times when we have a 7, think of any holidays that we have a 7. Anybody?
I was going to say maybe the Sfirot.
Sfirot, okay, very good. So we have the 7 Sfirot. We have Sfirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer, which is Sfirat HaOmer, the 7 weeks of 7. So anything having to do with 7 is going to be around the Sfirot. Anything with 10 is going to be around the Sfirot. And our Sfirot are divided between what are called the 7 lower and the 3 upper. Okay, 7 lower and 3 upper. Whenever we're having one of our holidays, we're always focused on the 7 lower. Patricia, looked like you had a question.
Well, in Israel, aren't Sukkot
Yes.
and Pesach, those are 7 days?
Yes, in the
I'm not sure
Torah,
about
in the Torah, those holidays are 7-day holidays. Sukkot is 7 days, Pesach is 7 days. And yes, Rosh Hashanah, just both, by the way, is 2 days everywhere. So, but those are 7 days. They're only 8 days outside the land of Israel. So yes, 7 is our holiday.
Isn't that the Shemitah year also for planting?
Very good. Exactly. Very good. The Shemitah
I had
year.
your classes.
Yes, that's right. The Shemitah year, the 7 years, which we're still on the tail of the impact of Shemitah here for the 8th year.
There's also the Sheva Brachot at a wedding.
Exactly. The Sheva Brachot of the wedding, the bride circling the groom 7 times, sitting Shiva for 7 days. Everything about that is about completion. And the 7th day is the most significant of the days, right? So somebody said at the beginning, the 7th day of Shabbos, right? That is the most significant day, is the 7th. So in those 7 days, and those 7 Sfirot are connected to the 7 plagues. Okay, they're connected to the 7 plagues. Now, what's very fascinating is the final plague is in this week's parsha. The 7th plague is the plague of hail. Okay, the plague of hail, and that plague was considered to be very different from the other ones. So we have to first ask the question of like, why would the seventh plague be very different? What was different about it? And was it effective? So if we go back to the Sfirot, this is the final Sfira is it goes, let's see, we could have a little bit of a quiz here. It starts off with Chesed, Gevura, kindness, strength, in the middle, Tiferet, beauty, harmony, Netzach, which is eternity or endurance, Hod, which is yielding, Yisod, which is foundation, and the final one is called Malchut. That's called kingship or sovereignty. So what does that mean? What does it mean to have sovereignty? Like, what does that mean? Like, I am a sovereign. Like, what is kingship? Like, what does that mean? So it means a lot of different things, but the way we're going to look at what it means for today is that it means full manifestation. That when something reaches the Malchut level, it means it is fully established. That's why you'd think that the Malchut would be the highest one, like the king would be at the top. It's actually on the bottom where it's grounded. The color of Malchut, the color of kingship is actually brown. It's like what the little paint box you got your kids or you had as a little kid. You would have your little watercolors and they would all be bright colors until you dipped your brush into each one of them and didn't clean it off very well. And then by the end of the first hour, your paints were all brown because all the colors got mixed together. So that's Malchut, is where all the colors mix together, but becomes then in full existence. So the full existence is called Malchut. So the seventh plague, and we can take a look at it. If you happen to have a Chumash available, the Art Scroll Chumash, I'm just going to turn to that. So it says about the seventh plague. This is on page 337. It says here, hold on one second. Page 337, this is about the plague of hail. It says, so said Hashem, the God of the Hebrews, send out my people that they may serve me. For this time I shall send all my plagues against your heart and upon your servants and your people, so that you shall know that there is none like me in all the world. When it says you shall send all my plagues, it's like, I'm not sending all my plagues. We already send we send each plague by itself. So why say send all the plagues? What it means is that the combined impact of each plague would then fully manifest itself in all the colors mixed together, the whole thing brought together in the plague of hail. And the plague of hail was meant to completely demonstrate God's reality. And what happens? What happens when that plague happens? So it's really fascinating. You think we should have the end of the plagues here, because what happens is in first of all, God gives a warning and says, you can avoid the damage of this plague. Take your animals inside and go inside, and then nobody will be hurt. So it said, whoever, this is verse 20 on page 337, whoever among the servants of Pharaoh feared the word of Hashem, chased his servants and his livestock to the houses. And whoever did not take the word of God to heart, he left his servants and livestock in the field. So that word, which people don't like the word, in verse 20, where it says those who feared God, but the word is Hayareh. Yareh is like Yirat Shamayim, fear of heaven, but it means to see, as in this name of this week's parsha, Va'era, and God appeared. He's to be able to see God and see God's reality. That's what it means, like, quote, to fear God. That's a terrible word. It means God seeing. I see God's reality. So there were Egyptians who reached this level where they could see God's reality, and they listened to Moshe's warning. They took their animals in and their servants, and they did not suffer the impact of the hail. What's more is what happens is that nothing had ever happened like that ever in the field and ever in Egypt. And if you turn to the next page 339, Pharaoh has an incredible response. It says, verse 27, Pharaoh sent and summoned Moshe and Aaron and said to them, this time I have sinned. Hashem is the righteous one, and I and my people are wicked ones. So now what do you think is going to happen? This is like saying, we have sinned, God is righteous. Pharaoh is on the verge of a spiritual breakthrough. He is on the verge of a spiritual epiphany. Okay, so what happens then, however, is it says, entreat Hashem, there's been an overabundance of godly thunder and hail. I shall send you out and you shall not continue to remain. What happens is Pharaoh is not able to tolerate the complete manifestation of God's reality. Just like we might have an experience where we are overwhelmed. It's like, I can't take it. I can't take it. It's too much. It's like too inspiring. It's too awesome. And so Pharaoh says, stop it. Not stop it because it was causing him pain, because it wasn't causing him pain. This was not like the boils, and it wasn't like the lice. It wasn't anything like that. He couldn't take the reality of it. He was overwhelmed with God's presence. And so he tells Moshe, I can't take it anymore. You can I'll let the Jewish people go, but I can tell them to stop the hail. And so Moshe says, I have to leave the city and I will ask for it to be stopped. And it says that the hail like stopped midair. That'd be a great movie. It stopped midair. It says, but the hail, it did not get to finish the job that it could have done. It said, Pharaoh had a chance to let the hail completely do its thing, to be able to see God's reality, to accept it, and adjust his view of like, I am God, I created myself, and to embrace his newfound knowledge, but he couldn't take it. And so he asks for it to be stopped. What does this mean? So this is the only plague that has this unique thing about it. It says God has saved the hail. God has saved the hail. He said, and he used some of it, Joshua ben Nun, that some of the hail fell on our enemies during Joshua's battles for the land of Israel near my apartment. And that there's some that is saved for the final battle of Gog and Magog, when the rest of the hail will fall. Now we think like, good, we're gonna have some hail to like really finish everyone off. It's like, that's not the purpose of the hail. This kind of hail, which was a mixture of fire and ice, the ultimate paradox of reality. How can this be? How can this be? That's our ultimate thing. It's like, how can this be? I don't understand. That's what it is. It's like, I don't understand reality. It's like, that's because you're not God. That will be the ultimate thing, is like the hail will finish its process. Malchut, the seventh sphera, will be complete. And then everyone will have total knowledge of Hashem. When we end our services and say Aleinu, we say, in the future, on that day, God will be one and his name one. There will be a unity of awareness so that everybody sees the truth. When that happens, says that is what will bring peace to the world. It is a Pharaoh who thinks that he created himself and that he's God. Not only is that just ridiculous, a person who thinks that, and all of our enemies have had some version of that. Hitler, Yimach Shemo, he said, I am a barbarian. I am a barbarian and I am a this, and survival of the fittest, and the Jews are vermin, and like all this stuff. That is before the actions of destruction happen, is a mindset that is not based on reality. It says when people have clarity, that's what will bring peace. It's not that people will make peace. The peace will emerge from the clarity, because we will understand who we are and who other people are vis-a-vis the creator of the universe. And when we have that, the natural humility that comes from that will allow human beings to live in peace together. Because Pharaoh couldn't get there, we have next week's parsha. And we have 3 more plagues that do a different job, but they don't do the job that the hail could have done. So had we had that seventh sphera, if we would have had that malchut, it says in the end, we will have it because that's the ultimate goal. So that literally the hail has been preserved and it will fall in the end and all of humanity will have clarity. When that happens, thank God, God willing, we'll be able to, sound scary in the interim. Yeah, in the interim, guess who has the reality? Are Jewish people, but not Jews exclusively, right? Because we saw even in Egypt, there were Egyptians who were able to get it. So this kind of belies the fact when people say, well, it's not fair. They had a culture where they didn't know. It's like, it's not a cultural issue. It is a choice issue. When you want to see reality, you will see reality. But we have to remind ourselves that our inclination is to not see it. Because if we don't see it, then we get to make up our own rules and we get to do whatever we want. And then we can all be a little miniature Pharaoh. And like, I'm going to do what I want. Because even if I can do what I want. I'm in charge of me and I get to do whatever I want. So all of us have a little Pharaoh. It's called our Yetzer Hara, our evil inclination. This is, I can do whatever I want. And we don't want to see reality. We could have this, you can have this as, think about this even on small scale. And we talk about like whether it's with exercise or diets or anything, money, that someone like operates from a framework of non-reality, of like, oh, I can eat this. Like we joke and say, if the cookie is crumbled, it doesn't have any calories. And we go, ha, 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 ha. And then we eat the cookie that we shouldn't be having. Or, it's my birthday, it's my friend's birthday, it's somebody's birthday, my dog's birthday. We make up a reality and a framework that allows us to do what we want to do. So that's called Pharaoh. It's like, I'm going to say whatever I want to say and then act accordingly. So this is what we all struggle with. And it's not just the evil Pharaoh. It's that's part of who we are as well. We spent a lot of time, this whole parsha, this could have all been done. If it was just a rescue operation for the Jewish people, could have been handled in just a few minutes, few sentences, and that would have been magnificent and the Jewish people would have been liberated. But that's not the purpose. The purpose was to bring us, and honestly, the plan A was, do you ever think, why were the Jews oppressed by Egypt? Couldn't God have picked some other, just like, I don't know, random group of people to oppress us? So it needed to be the most powerful nation that existed at the time. Because if you want to have an impact on humanity, you don't pick a small group of people to be involved. So the Egyptians, as the representatives of the known world, had they changed, it said the world would have been perfected and we would have been living in an alternate reality. So while we celebrate Pesach. And even though it's not Pesach now, we're not quite ready for Pesach yet. The fact that this week's parsha is happening now is considered a mini Pesach. We celebrate the redemption, but do you notice, what do we always talk about at our Seders? We always talk about Eliyahu Hanavi, of Elijah the prophet, and we have the Kos Eliyahu, the cup of Elijah, that we pour, but we're not yet ready to drink. And it's not just the Jewish people have not yet been redeemed. It's the world has not been redeemed. It doesn't do us any good to have just this. We are not triumphalistic. This isn't like, oh, at the end of the day, we win and they lose. At the end of the day, everyone is supposed to win. Everybody is supposed to have clarity. Everybody is supposed to understand who they are, who God is, and how to function in reality. This is not something that we want to be doing by ourselves. So in the end, it's like we're not quite ready. And so we pour that cup and we are focused on the future, that there will be an ultimate redemption. This will happen. It's a promise. We're not there yet. So thank God we celebrate where we have gotten to, but we also hold that recognition that we're not there yet. The first day of Pesach is always the same as Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av and Pesach are always the same day of the week. This is the counterpart, Tisha B'Av, which of course is the ultimate destruction, and Pesach, which is the ultimate redemption. They're tied together. It's like eventually that destruction is going to be overturned and be paired with redemption. For now, it's not yet, but God willing, every Pesach we have this opportunity. This week's parsha is considered especially auspicious for we, the Jewish people, God willing, for all of humanity, to check ourselves in our own clarity, to check ourselves to really see what it is we're thinking, if our belief systems are on track or not. I don't know if I shared this, if this was at the end of before I left Denver or not, but there was it's like a little cartoon or like a little thing that says, this little girl says to her mother, you know, I don't know, Sally believes in Santa Claus, and you know, like, what should I do? And her mother says, well, don't tell her there's no Santa Claus, because you know that's what her family believes, and so you should, that's not for you to tell her. She goes, well, I already told her there was no Santa Claus, but you know what she told me? She said she knows that. She says, but my mom and dad think there's a Santa Claus, so I just play along. So it's like, you know, if you're 3 or 4 and you think there's a Santa Claus and a tooth fairy and all these other things, like, okay, maybe it's okay, it's probably okay. But you know, if you're 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, or 80 and you still think that, that's a problem. Okay, and that's not just about that. There's a whole host of things that we are supposed to have clarity about reality. This is our week to check it out, to be inspired by what we can see of Hashem's reality in the world. God's not going to provide the 10 plagues for us, thank God. Not going to provide that for us every year for our benefit or every day. So we need to open our eyes in other ways to see the amazing evidence of God's existence. I listened to a fabulous class that talked about how the power of the microscope really should be inspiring people to spiritual ecstasy. That the amount of magnification of what we can see in a molecule of the human being, that what used to look like in the early microscopes looked like, or how my microscope looked in chemistry or biology, which was like, I could never get it clear. I never saw anything on those slides that you were supposed to see all these things. I never saw anything except my finger moving the little glass around. So I didn't miss my calling. But if you know what you're doing and you look at in a high power microscope, what used to look like random movement, the scientists thought indicated then that the world was random. This was part of Darwin's thing. I don't say anything, it's just like all kind of moving around. That now we can see like 1,000,000 times the size, or 1,000,000,000, I'm not even sure what the number is, and it manifests itself. This is Malchut. Can see the incredible, intricate, amazing, complex structure, which is beyond our comprehension. It's one cell. Like, I remember driving in the car with Benjamin when he was little, and he said, you know how sometimes if you think about the universe, it kind of just makes your head hurt? You know, if you just like think about it, it's like, it's too much. Now, my son was not Pharaoh, but a little bit like too much. Like we can't even grasp it. That's Malchut. It says each of us at our own, whatever area, if it's music, if it's art, if it's whatever it is about the human body, pick a part of your body and investigate something between now and Shabbos to become amazed. And to be amazed, it says that's Malchut. We have a saying, Ma Rabu Ma'asecha, how expansive and magnificent are your creations. I can't even comprehend it. I remember even though one of those little books you got at the wizard's chest, it was something about, I don't know, it had things like pictures like of your scalp magnified, even just like, I don't know, 100 times, and it looks like a forest. I'm like, wow, how does that work? Like all these things, the world is so magnificent. And we need to open our eyes to it. Then it's Va'era, and God appeared. What does that mean? And God appeared. And when God appears, it results in Yirat Shamayim. Yirat Shamayim, which is an awe of God because I see God's reality and I am awestruck. And instead of saying, I don't want to know, I'm like, let me be amazed and humbled by it. And it's the good kind of small, and it's the good kind of overwhelmed. It's like, wow. Now, many people do seek this out a little bit when they say that they encounter God in nature. I like to go to the mountains. I like to, whatever it is, see trees or flowers. I mean, I'm in the flower category, or the zoo, and to be awed and amazed by creation. But sometimes that stops at, I'm just enjoying it. It's not necessarily compelling me to say, and what does the infinite creator of the universe want from me? That's where the Torah comes from. If we can't see God to begin with, then I don't care what God wants from me, because I'm like, I don't see you, I don't hear you, I'm blocking you out. And that's and that was Pharaoh. It was like, I can't take it anymore. Make that hail go away. Make that manifestation of godliness go away. I'll let you go. That's why Moshe says, and what does Moshe say to, Moshe says to Pharaoh? He says, verse 30, first of all, he says, I'll stop it. He says, but verse 30, as for you and your servants, I know that you are not yet, and it uses the word afraid. I know that you are not yet able to see Hashem, that you're not ready. And that's what he's saying, is you're not ready to do it. And here's the trick. It has to be free will. It says there is a very delicate balance between God making God's self apparent to us and our choosing to see. If someone hits you over the head with reality, they don't own it. In order to be in the relationship, we have to be able to want it. And Pharaoh was saying to Moshe, I can't take this. Even though I just said God is righteous and I am evil, I can't go any further than this. Like, it's, as they say in Hebrew, yoter midai, it's too much for me. I can't do it. So history, as human history unfolds, is God's infinite patience of this dance of awareness between making God's evidence manifested and hiding it so that we can reach for it, but not get too much. It even talks about simple things. You know, the thing when someone says, you ask someone what time it is and they tell you how to make a watch. Do you ever have people in your life who are like that? It's like, I just wanted to know the time. I'm not ready to hear how the whole watch works. Okay. Don't tell me all of this information. Actually, somebody was telling us here, like our second night here was giving us directions on how to get someplace. And I said, I have to tell you, everything you're telling me makes absolutely no sense, because I don't know the names of the streets. I don't know the names of the neighborhood, and I don't even know what you're talking about. So it's kind of like, stop. So it's like, you know, if you can't take it in, it doesn't help. So as I say, God is very patient. The Jewish people are supposed to be the demonstration of what it looks like to live with this awareness of God's reality and what that looks like, because it makes it more manageable. That way God doesn't have to, like, you know, it's like trying to plug your toaster into the power station. It doesn't work. You're going to explode. But if you have like some circuits along the way, it's like, well, here's like a smaller version of it. That's what it means to be godly people. It doesn't just mean like they were like really well behaved. It means, do we manifest God's reality and what it looks like on how one lives when one is aware of God's reality? That's called to be a Yirei Shamayim, someone who sees God and therefore acts accordingly. And when we do that, then the rest of the world will see us And trust me, open any newspaper on any day of the week, the entire world is watching us all the time. So they're already watching us. We don't have to work on that part of it, but we do need to work on, am I living a way that makes the fact that God's reality and God's existence is a true reality, and that the way I lead my life is a reflection of that. We are told the creation of humanity, that God created us, but Tselem Elohim, in the image of God. But at Tselem, like the word for a camera is a matzlema, it means it makes an image of it. Okay, so am I an image of God in this world? Does someone look at me and say, oh, now I understand who God is because I see you? That's the question that we're supposed to answer. But the first question we have to ask is, are we seeing God first? So when we get to that place, then we'll be able to do it. God willing, this week
Amen.
will bring us that kind of clarity, to work on that clarity on an ongoing everyday basis, that it's like fitness. You don't just like get it and keep it. It is a constant effort to cultivate that awareness. And this parsha is supposed to launch us on that. And hopefully it will be, that is a refuah, that is a healing that we should all merit to have and merit to be evidence of. So that's just a little taste of this week's parsha, of those 7 sfirot. Now you'll always remember, so in case somebody just happens to ask you at the dinner table, so how many plagues are discussed in this week's parsha? Is it 7? Because 7 sfirot, 7 plus 3, 10. So that you can always remember that. So that's why it's broken down like that. It wasn't done for a dramatic pause. It was done because this section represented something significant in and of itself, with that 7th plague being a game changer, and then being the final 3 plagues of like, okay, we can't go any further with this. Now we'll just kind of finish up the scenario here, because history will have to pause until we're ready for the rest of the hail. So it always sounds like hell, but it's hail. And so that's the kind of hail we want. It's like, we need more hail. So that barad. So we should get that. All right, ladies, thank you. Anybody have any questions, comments, or anything? Yes, Andy, if you want to
When you said refuah hadnefesh, what's the difference between refuah hadnefesh and refuah shlema? I thought that was a complete healing.
Okay, so the word shlema is like the word shlemut or shalom, which means whole or complete and harmonious. It means put together. Refuah hanefesh means we're talking about when you wish someone refuah shlema, that's the quick version. But in our davening, we break it up into the components, refuah hanefesh and refuah haguf, your body and your soul and your body. All together, that's called shlema. It's like 1 + 1 equals the whole thing together. But usually when you're talking to someone, you don't say refuah hanefesh or refuah haguf. People might think that was a little strange thing to say. You just say refuah shlema.
Thank you.
Sure, Beth Ann. You're still on mute.
No, I'm not.
Yes, Beth Ann.
Technology is grand if you know how to use it.
True.
I just had a few thoughts I wanted to share. One was, there's a movie on Netflix called Stutz, Stutz, that's about that sort of therapeutic healing, soul healing, that I would recommend to everybody. And I hope you don't mind me being funny, but there's a Groucho Marx quote that says, I don't really care for reality, but it's the only place to get a good meal.
Oh. Yeah, reality is, think about what people do. Thank you. I mean, people would think what people do is when they are unhappy with reality, they try to escape.
Uh-huh.
So, and our job is to, but sometimes it's because they don't quite understand what reality actually is, which again is oftentimes for a good therapist who has a solid spiritual background
Right.
and backing to be able to understand what is reality, because that's really actually where we do need to be, is we are meant to be in the here and now, which is
All right.
Hashem has put us. Thank you. Anybody else?
I had a thought about bringing down to a day-to-day level. I was thinking about when I have a wonderful son. When he was little, he was very precocious. And at that time, we used to do little patches. If, I didn't like to move anything from a coffee table or anything, I wanted him to learn how to control his emotion and not grab this or that. So I would give him, when he went for something that he shouldn't be touching, I would give him a little potch. And he would wait until that potch was over for a few seconds. And the thought of that potch, like Paro got his potches from Hashem, and I would give him a second potch if he continued to go for whatever it was. And depending upon how important his determination was, as Paro's determination kept going back to keeping the Jewish people where they were, I might have to go as far as a third potch. So we went all the way to the final plague of the death of the firstborn. But he
Which I
would,
hope was not your son.
if it was super important of what he was going for, it might take a third potch, and the potch got a little bit harder each time. And then he would make the decision, not worth it.
Not
I
worth
need
it.
to move on.
Okay. Well, I'm not here to comment on people's parenting strategies, but
I know, but I'm just thinking of the comparison that Hashem had to get
there has to be a
Pharaoh's
response.
attention, had to
That's
get
right.
his attention.
You do have to get people's attention. There are different ways to do it, but getting someone's attention. And just so we know that Pharaoh, as far as hardening his heart, is that he hardened his heart initially. It wasn't until the 6th plague that God then hardened his heart. So it's like once you kind of dig yourself into that level, then you kind of get what you get. You have created a reality for yourself. So it's like you can't remember, like your mom would tell you, if you keep doing that, your face is going to freeze like that. Well, guess what? It does. And then you go for the Botox or something. It's like, why does my face look like that? It's like, well, what were you doing? Or they say if you roll your eyes, one of these days they're going to get stuck up there. Now that doesn't happen. But these things of like the things that we habituate ourselves in doing create a reality for us. And Pharaoh created the reality where even though he had like this kind of breakthrough moment, he couldn't get there because he had gotten himself too tangled up in himself. And that's very scary. It's actually a little alarming to think that we can get ourselves stuck. But again, getting unstuck says that is that Egypt is called the house of bondage. And it doesn't just mean the place of enslavement of the Jewish people. It says their mindset was, of all the Egyptians, was one of bondage. They were stuck in how they saw reality. And it took a crisis. It took getting, like what you're saying, Miriam, about it took getting their attention. And we think about it, how many people in our own lives, like, when have you ever changed your mind about something? When have you ever changed about how you see something? It's often due to a crisis. It's often due to something that happened that just kind of shakes you up and makes you rethink, or it could be a life cycle change. It could be a lot of other things that can shake us up. Otherwise, we tend to be stuck doing things, thinking what we think because we have always thought them, and we're just continuing along the way. So it's very challenging. So it's a lot of work to be a human being and to be a truly centered, focused, clear human being. That's part of what our davening is for also. When we our davening. So it's like, oh, I'm supposed to daven now. I'm supposed to pray to God. It's like, what am I praying for? One of the first things we asked for is our mental capabilities. It's like, God, you have graciously given humanity the ability to think, to reason, and to understand. And I want to make sure I'm using those properly. That's a huge thing. And then the rest of your day can unfold. Otherwise, we're stuck. It doesn't even matter what else you're doing. You're stuck. So we should just focus on that. We are not supposed to be stuck. And we don't want to be like the birds in a zoo that are in the bird village or whatever, and they don't ever leave because they have everything they need. Or the story that's even better is about the elephant, baby elephants, how they train them is they put I won't say a leash, whatever, chain on them and a stake in the ground when they're little, and they're not strong enough to pull it out, but they keep them that way. And when they're older, they don't pull it out because they were trained that they can't. And even though they could pull it up like in 1 minute, they don't because they're trained to think that they can't. So that's called being stuck. It's like, I don't think I can. So they say about Egypt, nobody ever left Egypt. It's like, why not? Was the Egyptian army so powerful? It's like, no one ever did. It's like, you're in a place that is so oppressive. Why don't you leave? It's like, that's like where I am. So nobody ever left. So the fact that the Jews left that was a miracle to be able to be taken out of that. And each and every one of us that is our inheritance. Your inheritance is you are not in Egypt. You are not in that narrow place. We are free, and we are free to have clarity and to be able to think and see the world and see God's reality as well. Trudy asked about getting a recording. So I had announced at the beginning that hopefully, not sure when, it will be on the Jewish Experience website, but it's not up and running yet. I'm going to be working on it with actually with Judy's daughter, with Deb Flomberg. She's doing that for us. She's our marketing and high-tech person, but I did record it on my digital recorder, so I will upload it right after class to my website, which again is torahchai.net, not torahchai.com, and it'll be up there. And I'll look forward to being anybody who wants to get that recording. If you hear anybody, just tell them to go there. Any other questions or comments? It was so great to see
Ellyn?
you. Yes, Janice.
Thank you, Ellyn.
Ellyn, I have a question.
Oh,
Sure.
I'm sorry. Oh,
It's Susan.
Oh, Susan,
go
I'm sorry. I
ahead.
was looking at
Somebody
Jen. Go, Susan, go ahead, and
Oh.
then Janice.
It's a personal question. Do you mind if I ask a personal question?
Go ahead.
Are you still going to be wearing your sheitel, or is this the new look?
So it's interesting. First of all, I have to tell you, it's so fun. And I can walk around looking normal. Everyone, there's a lot of women with like all sorts of things on their heads. It's great. So I usually wear a scarf during the week. Now, I should say usually, my big pattern, I've been here for 1 month. I wear a scarf during the week and my sheitel on Shabbos. Just to have a change instead of like every single day, the exact same thing. So just having that variety, and because it's cold, honestly, I really like having something on my head and it keeps me warm, and I can wrap it around my neck too if I have to. So yeah, it's expanded my wardrobe considerably.
Yeah, beautiful. It's beautiful.
Thank you. So thank you for asking. You can also ask any other personal questions. It's totally fine.
so,
Janice.
yeah, I'm going back to what we were talking about, and I'm wondering about whether the concept of 8 being above nature, if the break this week at 7, and then next week 8 through 10 have an impact as well.
Okay, great question. So 8 through 10 really represent the top 3 sfirot of they also are in reverse order of creation, which is why it ends with the creation of the 10, what are called the 10 sayings that brought creation into reality, are undone by the 10 plagues. So there's a kind of, there's different layers and levels of things that are going on simultaneously, of different ways of looking at it. So bless you, whoever just sneezed. And those top three are for Chachma, Bina, and Da'at. And those are the three that are Chabad, and those are considered also of the mind, but those are considered the top three. So more so than the 8, it's the fact that they're the top 3. And I haven't studied that yet from this perspective of knowing then how that fits in of what, I'm sorry, I should have said, in addition to Share Smiles, this is also coming from Rabbi Wolfson, from a new book that I have from him, Rabbi Moshe Wolfson. So he's the one who talked about the lower 7. So more so that than the 8.
Thank you, Ellyn.
You are welcome. Thanks for joining, Judy. Thank you, everybody. Anybody
Thank
else
you.
have a question?
Thank you.
Thank you for everyone joining me from Israel, from Denver, and let's see, I'm not sure if I've seen any other places. Oh, and from Arizona, for those who escaped the snowstorm and are there. That's great.
Ellyn, you give me those
Thank
valley
you.
moments. Yeah.
Ellyn, can I
Yes.
just ask for next week, because we're probably done now, something?
Yes, of course.
So I love what you're saying, that it's a reverse order, the 10 sayings. Can we elaborate it next week? Like you said about Vayehi Or versus darkness, but can we do more of them next week?
If I find it, yes. I'm not sure Rabbi Wolfson will be exploring that. So we'll see. And I don't know where it's laid out. It's just they lay out all the 10s. The 10 sayings, which are called Ma'amaros, the 10 sayings that brought about creation, the 10 plagues, and then the 10 commandments. And all of those are all connected. And different people say they're in reverse order, different people say they're in the same order. And I don't really know about that. I'm not sure I'll have a chance to find that out. So I can't really say more about that, other than knowing that those, it's not just like, oh, let's have 10 because that's a good, nice round number, that they're meant to all convey the same thing, just like the 10 saying, just same thing with creation. If God wanted to create the world, not wanted to, God did create the world. It could have been just, let there be the world. It didn't have to be done in 10 sayings. So if you go in Bereshit, at 10 times it says, let there be, let there be, let there be. Those are the 10 sayings. And then the 10 Vayomer, and God said, let there be. And there are 10 of those, and God said. And then the 10 plagues, the same thing. They're meant to be, they're meant to correspond. And then the 10 commandments, the same thing. Those are addressed. The 10 commandments are not like, oh, now God gave us all these things we have to do. Those 10 commandments are a reflection of, if we had clarity about reality, we would observe the 10 commandments automatically. That's why it says that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Leah observed the Torah before it was given. Like, what does that mean? It's because they had clarity about reality. And so a natural response was to keep the Torah, because it's like, sometimes when you buy something and you figure out how to work it just because it seems obvious to you. Now, I'm not one of those people. I bought a new iron here and I'm like trying to figure out, like, I couldn't even get like the water part open to like put in for the steam. So, but other people are more adept and they could figure that out. So if somebody has clarity and can see, then they automatically respond appropriately. So they had that clarity. God gave us the gift of, like, in case you don't automatically get it, let me tell you clearly what you need to do in order to have the operating manual for living your life in this world. And sometimes it'd be like, oh, so sometimes you get one of those manuals and it looks too thick and you'd be like, oh, I don't need to read the directions. I'll just do it how I want to. Like, it'll be obvious. So I bought this new iron And I'm thinking, okay, the water in Israel is hard, and so I probably should use distilled water. And I'm like getting ready to buy the distilled water. So I just happened to ask the person at the appliance store, so I should get distilled water for this? He goes, oh, no, no, no. For this iron, you absolutely do not use distilled water. Here, like no distilled water. I'm like, oh, okay. So he said, no, that'll ruin your iron. I'm like, good to know. Since it was very expensive, I'm not looking to replace it. So he goes, no, this iron was made to work with regular water. I'm like, okay, glad I asked. So, but I could have thought, I've been ironing for 50 years. I'm sure I know how to use an iron. It's like, well, no, actually you don't. It's a different kind of iron. So we do this with our lives. We're like, I'm sure I can figure out what to do. I'll just do what feels good to me. That will be a good decision. It's like, don't do that. Ask. That's another humbling part about being in Israel. It's just asking everybody everything. Like we went into the pharmacy and you have to take a number because it's not, you just butt in line, you have to take a number. We couldn't figure out on the machine what to even press to get the number. And so I asked somebody behind me, I'm like, like, how do we get the number? He goes, like that. I'm like, thank you so much. It had nothing to do with the Hebrew. It was just like, touch the little button on the screen that clearly is meant to give you the number if you know that's what it's for. So that's why we have the idea in Judaism of asking shailas, asking a she'ilah, asking a question. I want to know how to proceed in this situation. What's the Torah on this? Now, someone might say, well, there isn't really Torah. This is just a personal preference thing. Or it might be, yes, actually, there is a way to do this a right way, a wrong way, a better way, a worse way. There's all sorts of responses. So our goal is to live with this, not because like we want someone telling us what to do, it's just because wouldn't you rather live your life in a straightforward way than be in a place of confusion and ruining your iron? So ruining your iron is one thing, ruining your life is another. So, all right, any other questions? Okay, ladies, thank you so much. I'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you, Ellyn.
Hi, Ellen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Ellen. Be well.
Bye-bye.
This was great. Thank you.
One regards to Steve and the whole family.
Thank
So-
you. Thank you to you guys
So
too.
Which Wednesday will you not teach, you said? Shushan.
Only Shushan Purim. That's on a Wednesday.
Okay, and I did not understand what's the difference between Vayomar and Vayehi. Vayehi is the,
Vayehi means just let there be.
Right,
Vayehi
but
or.
that's called the 10 creations?
No, the Vayomer, and God said.
That's
There-
that's creations?
That
Okay.
God said
Okay,
Vayomer.
oh, right. First Vayomer, and then it happened.
Yes,
First was
And he said-
Vayomer, then Vayehi.
said that 10
And-
times.
Okay. Okay, thank you. The Ma'amarot is which? Vayomer.
The Eser Ma'amarot, the 10 sayings. Those are the 10,
That's the
10
Ma'amarot.
yes.
Toda Rabba. Yasher Koach.
Bevakasha. Baruch Ti.
So
Toda
happy
Rabba.
to restart. Thank you for making
My
that.
pleasure. And I have to tell you, we are so fortunate to be in this gorgeous apartment. Like that
It's nice.
has like these 18-foot ceilings. And I'm just gonna show you like, and this
How did
very
you find it?
dramatic. It was relatives of Patty Jo Streltzer. It's her relatives and they rented it to us, which we're very grateful for.
Wonderful.
Really,
Yeah.
really nice.
Mm.
There's so many Denverites in this neighborhood and
Yeah.
2 of my nieces and my sister, and it's
Nice.
been a lot of fun.
Which sister is in your neighborhood?
Miriam Devora, Melissa.
The one who just went back recently again.
Mhm.
The other one lives in
In Ma'ale Adumim.
Shulamit.
Mhm.
Remember? Well, so that's
Very
far.
good.
That's
Very good.
far,
Yeah,
right?
it's about a half hour drive.
From
It's
where
not-
you live?
From where,
you
no, from Jerusalem where we are now. It's about 10 minutes from where our apartment
Okay.
will be when it's done.
walking or driving?
No, driving. Yeah, no driving. Driving
That's
on Highway
better.
1. Driving on Highway 1. Yeah.
And it's And it's safe, and you think the apartment will be ready when they said so? Because usually,
Well, the apartment is ready. We're waiting for the certificate of occupancy. That's a government thing. Some of the apartments have it. Ours is the last, in the last building that's been done. So we're not expecting to move in until right before Shavuos.
okay, but you can stay longer where you are until it's ready?
No, we can stay here until the end of March. And then we're going to Shalavim, to Benjamin and Dahlia for Pesach, which is at the
Mhm.
beginning of April. So we're going to go for 2 weeks to Benjamin and Dahlia. Then the day after Pesach, actually, because Pesach ends early, not early, ends after 7 days. When Pesach is over here, we'll fly to the United States, to Florida,
Good
And-
idea.
because Audrey is expecting. So we're the day after Pesach, Bezrat Hashem.
She's
Shah
feeling well?
Tova, and she is, thank God. So
When is she
she's due the day after Pesach. She's scheduled for a C-section.
Oh, okay. So you'll do that. So then it's okay that and then you'll stay until it's ready.
Which hopefully will be right before Shavuot. So then
So
we'll
that-
go back,
Be like in Florida for a month or something.
like about 5 weeks.
Nice. That's so good for Audrey. Such a big help.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
so we'll be
that's good.
there. So a lot of moving around. This is so different
Yeah.
for us. I mean, you guys know me. It's like my life I was in Denver, but I lived my life on Leedsdale, Monaco, Holly, Alameda, Colorado Boulevard. We're stretching it, and now we're like, oh, we're here for these 2 weeks, and then 3 months here, and then a month here. It's just even getting my head around that is just so different. But we've been riding the bus, and I even am doing better directionally than I thought. I think part of it is, like I said in my first video, the names of the places are meaningful to me. The neighborhood we're in right here, our immediate area, are all the tribes. So we have Yehuda and Shimon and Naphtali and Asher and Dan, and they're all those names of those streets. And then there's Rivka and Esther Hamalka and Sipporah, and then I also saw there's Yocheved. So it's like I have my mind links onto that, so that I just have a better ability to remember that. So
What's the name of your shchuna, of your neighborhood?
it's called Baka,
How do you write that?
Baka.
Oh, not babka.
Baka.
Baka. Not a babka.
No, Baka.
Almost a dessert.
Yeah.
How far
So
from the Kotel? Is it far from the Kotel?
one could walk, but we took the bus.
Yeah,
15
it's a little
minutes, 15, 20 minutes. Yeah, we went to the hotel. It was very nice. We were able to go on Steve's dad's yurt site. And so he was able to daven with a minyan and say Kaddish. So, I mean, he's been going to shul as well here, because there's a shul that's for basically English-speaking people. So we've gone to that, which has been really nice. So
You're getting to Jerusalem, what otherwise you wouldn't have.
oh, yeah. So I said, even though this isn't going to be where we are permanently, it's really nice having a sense of where things are. And we've also, how they, like for freshman year of college, I don't know where you were, but you always talk about the freshman 10 of, people, like usually girls gaining weight. Like
20.
I'm having so much fun eating. It's just
So-
like to be able to go so many different places and not think like, I love the deli and I love Brooklyn Pizza, and I'm grateful to them for existing. But it's also really nice just to say, oh, let's go out for Chinese food, or we went to this one for dairy, and we went to this one for that. And just like, oh, let's go have coffee. Let's get a rugelach. Let's do that. It's just, I feel this is so not spiritual. I feel so liberated. I feel so free. I feel like I can just be a normal person. I mean, not just like dressing. I'm like, okay, nobody's looking at me wearing a scarf on the street. Nobody, I fit right in.
You look normal.
My eating fits right in. It's just, it's just really nice to be in a place where it's a very natural, normal feel. And, you know, and everybody's saying Shabbat Shalom, and at Hanukkah, everyone's happy Hanukkah, Hanukkah Sameach. All of these things are just great. It's home. Yeah. So Jewishly, it feels like totally home. And then functionally, I'm an immigrant. And it's because of like trying to figure out all of this stuff. But we've been really fortunate. We got our driver's licenses. We got a personal banker, which was pretty funny because he's made Aliyah from France. So French is his first language, Hebrew is his second language, and English is a far third. And he was the sweetest person ever, this like religious guy who's like writing on his notes to us, you know, B'siyata Dishmaya, like Bet Samach Daled at the top of his page of the bank notes. I'm like, I love this. The banks hit that branch bank was supposed to close at 1 for a lunch break. He just kept on working. I thought he was gonna say, you know, you're gonna have to come back. It's too much to do. We're closing now. He worked for another hour with us.
Wow.
And he said, and just email me if you have any questions. And when your bank card comes, it's going to go to this place, but let me know and I'll have it sent over here and I'll do this for you. And he was so sweet. Yitzchak.
Exactly. Yeah, because bureaucracy is a big problem usually. So I'm very happy for you. So that's very
So you know
easy.
what? It's interesting. There's bureaucracy. I said to Steve, there's like two things going on. There's the bureaucracy, and then there's the personal relationships. There's some people say it's protexia, you know, do you know somebody or somebody? But you don't even have to have that many people like, you know, I mean, I'm not talking about extreme circumstances, but just generally, like when we went to meet our family doctor, I had asked the woman who's the mayor of Mitzpeh Yericho, she's American. I said, do you have a recommendation for a family doctor for our Kupa through our health service? She said, we really like, what's his name? Margulies, Yitzchak Margulies. I'm like, great. If you like him, I'm sure I will too. That's the other thing. I'm not being like, oh, I'm going to investigate this and that. I'm like, ask somebody you trust. Like, who do you go to? I'm like, great. That's who I'm going to. So we went to, I'm sorry?
Is the mayor where you will live?
Yeah. It's a woman. So we went to him and I said, you know, Aliza Pilichowski recommended you, and he got this big grin. He's totally happy to help us. And, you know, sometimes you also have to
Trust.
like, be nice. You have to be nice and like say something nice to somebody. I mean, even like I don't know, woman at the whatever, she had like a really pretty manicure. I'm like, oh, you know, that's a really beautiful manicure. She's, oh, let me give you the numbers. Like that. So it's like, you know, it helps to also recognize that the people doing these jobs, this is not necessarily the highlight of their life doing this job, just because you have something important you want done, you want them to do for you, you know, to just like see them as a person. Now there's some people, I mean, there's like one person who was this was kind of funny. I went into the post office. You have to have an appointment to go to the post office, which is pretty funny. So we went to the post office, and first of all, we had to have somebody show us where the post office was, because it was like this little hole in the wall on the street that looked like somebody donated their garage and turned it into a post office. You would never find it in a million years. So somebody showed us where it was. So that was already exciting. Then we had made an appointment. So we had our number and had our appointment. So we go in there. I'm sorry?
Online? You made an appointment online before you go?
Yeah. Made an appointment online and went. So it's fine. Had our number, had our time, whole thing. So I walk in and someone goes, what do you want? And I said, mail a letter and pay my driver's license. She goes, they're like, kind of like, oh, okay, fine. So I was mailing something, and the stamps that I needed for it were to mail to America. The envelope I had was gold, and the stamps, the Israeli stamps, are gorgeous, just beautiful. So she gave me the stamps, and I'm like, oh. So I said in Hebrew, I said, זה ממש יפה, זה מתאים את המכתב שלי. I said, this is so beautiful. It really fits like my envelope. It looks so nice. And she like smiled. She smiled. It's like, she was, yeah, it's so pretty. And so, I mean, just a little bit of human connection. Now, I'm not saying this is always going to work. It's been 1 month and we haven't had all that many connections, but we've finished all of our new immigrant work. And our goal was get a smile and do it in fewer than 3 times.
That's amazing. Because that's
So-
the hard, and then you can start life.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing live too. We've been, you know,
Yeah, you have family around. It's awesome.
we have, oh my gosh, thank God. Well, like Dolly had to show us how to get the grocery carts. I mean, she took us, again, such an immigrant. She took us to the grocery store for like 2 hours, showed us how to get the grocery cart out. And then she had to give us a tutorial about all the hechshers, because there are good hechshers and not so good hechshers. And then then Shemitah, and things that were grown by non-Jews, and things that were grown outside the land of Israel, things that were grown hydroponically, things that do have the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, all of this stuff that like is totally irrelevant in the United States. You just go look for OU in the United States and you're good. Here, there's like all these hechshers, they all look super, super religious fancy, and they have microscopic writing on them. Like, who can even see what these things say? It's like you get used to just seeing like the logo of them. Anyway, we were exhausted, but we were so happy to have groceries.
Wow. But the little Macaulay will not do that. You just go in and you don't
No,
have,
I mean, in Macaulay, you have to check the hechshers. I mean, you have to
Yeah,
you
yeah,
still think with, yeah,
but
but no, yeah,
Agala, you don't have a problem.
yeah, you don't
This
have that.
one,
That's only in the supermarkets, but
Yeah.
yeah,
So
but it's very fun. It's like, yay, we did it.
Sounds like a totally new stuff.
So new. And I learned how to work the washing machine and the dryer. That was like also exciting.
Wow.
So yeah,
You-
so
you
we're
feel-
doing fine, but it all makes me tired and hungry. And then I just want to have iced coffees.
And
So-
baklava? No baklava? Hummus, trin.
That's too sweet for me, a little too sweet for me. I don't care for that so much. So,
But all the hummus,
And-
trin. Pargiot. I love pargiot.
but we went out for kosher Chinese and it was so good. You know, you're having Chinese food cooked by actual Chinese chefs.
Not
who know
too,
what they're
not
doing.
too salty. Wow, real Chinese. Not too salty like here.
Not for me.
Nice.
I like salt. So it was very nice. Yeah.
That's
So
good.
thank God. All right. It's what time is it here?
We go rest and eat. We love-
9:30.
Thank you. Oh, it's late.
Thank you
yeah.
so much for joining me. I was so looking forward to it. And
I put an alarm on my clock so I don't forget. Wednesdays. at
Okay.
11.
Wednesdays at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, it does collide with my Denver Area Music Teachers Association that is second semester once a month and first semester twice a month, every 2 weeks. Unfortunately, same time. So sometimes I'll have to hear recordings and sometimes I'll give up the music.
Okay. Well, whatever you can do will be wonderful. I'll appreciate it.
Of course, we need you. I descend when I don't have you. So I needed you, my elevator, my spiritual elevator.
Thank you. It elevates me. And I was so happy to go to hear Shara Smiles and to read my new book. And
That's amazing. You're growing. And Yemima Mizrahi is also in Jerusalem?
she is in Jerusalem. I haven't seen anything with her speaking at the moment, but I think I told you, I ran into her when I was in Israel in August. I went to go visit a woman and I heard her voice before I saw her. She had walked into the building before me and I rode up the elevator with her. I was like, oh my gosh, Yemima. So she was just a lovely person, but it's funny since her voice is so distinctive. So yeah, she lived in the same building as this woman I went to visit. So
Right, because Kolel used to we used to do it in memory
yeah,
of a donation and we would go see the movies and that's it. Now they didn't do it because of pandemic. And I don't know, I'm sure there's a way to get to hear her stuff, but I'm not good with the internet. So if you find out, I'll be happy to hear.
okay, if I hear of anything, I will let you know.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
Lots of love.
all right.
And Steve too. Bye.
I will my best to everybody. Carol, so good to see you. Give my best to Isabel. How's she doing?
She's good. She's downstairs right now singing her little heart out. So
Oh, that's so cute.
it comes up through the heat vent here in the dining room.
That's so funny.
And she has a new puppy that we got after, well, we still have Buddy, but we have this puppy that we got the day after Yom Kippur.
I was
So
to say,
she's
you got her right.
6
Yeah, I was to
months
say,
now. Yeah,
how's she doing, the puppy?
she's good. I put her in her crate right now so she wouldn't be jumping on me during class.
Oh,
So she's asleep.
that's so
Yeah.
funny. And is the same kind of dog as Buddy?
Can you see?
Oh, yeah, so cute. And what's this one's name?
She's named Liz.
Liz.
Isabel named her Elizabeth Elisheva Echevarrias Candelaria. She's named after our cantor at Temple.
Elizabeth Sachs.
Yeah.
That's so funny. That's great.
Yeah.
That's so great. Oh my gosh, that's really funny. Wow, very cute.
Okay. Well,
Good to
thank
see
you so
you,
much.
Carol. I'm really glad
You
you
too.
could join in.
Me
I look
too.
forward to seeing you. All right,
Okay.
take care.
You too. Be well. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.